Thank you for joining us on the Winning and Selling Podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
I heard someone say that they treated their sales territory as if it were their own business. Well, that seemed to make sense to me, and I thought Scott and I should discuss the pros and cons of thinking like an entrepreneur. So be ready to take control as Scott and I venture into a capitalist discussion about the entrepreneurial salesperson on episode 605 of the Winning at Selling Podcast.
Kind of reminds me of my first job outside of the kitchen at a restaurant when I was a server in a restaurant, and I would have generally 5 to 6 tables, and that was my business. That was my territory.
Right.
And I wanted to, sell as much as I could, suggesting appetizers and desserts and salads and soups, and then try to turn the tables over as fast as possible. And the faster I turned them over, the more sales I made, the more tips I made, the more money I made. And
That's
I
right.
really get this concept of really having your territory as your own business and manage it and really tend to the soil and try to yield as much of a crop as possible. But before we get into that topic, we're doing the book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and we're doing chapters 2 and 3 today. So chapter 2 is titled Luck and Risk. And I went through and did a little AI on the introduction of this to see how the AI is going to tell us as a description of this chapter. And it says that it examines the role of luck and risk in financial success, emphasizing how individuals often underestimate the influence of these factors and how acknowledging and managing risk can lead to more informed decision-making and better outcomes over time. And they use the example of Bill Gates and Paul Allen in this chapter. These two went to the same school together, and luckily, somebody was very wise at a young, impressionable age to provide with them a computer. And Paul Allen and Bill Gates would do all kinds of programs on this computer and learn all of the intricacies of it, and later went on, obviously, to start Microsoft. But there was another person that was in the mix named Ken Evans, and they were best friends with Bill Gates since the 8th grade. Unfortunately, he died in a mountain climbing accident before he ever graduated from high school.
Wow.
So we look at the difference between...
So he didn't have a lot of luck.
He did not have a lot of luck. No. And how much of a timing is it luck? I was watching Yellowstone the other day, and Travis, for those of you that are playing along at home, know who Travis is. Travis is Taylor Sheridan, the author, the writer, the creator of the show. And he was showing horses one time, and Jimmy, we all know who Jimmy is if we're watching the show, Jimmy said to Travis, the character, "Good luck." And Travis turns around and says, "Jimmy, luck has nothing to do with it." And he had the confidence of 1,000 people when he walked onto that arena floor to show that horse. So luck had nothing to do with it. It was all skill and preparation.
Well, I think what they're trying to say is that luck does have something to do with it, right?
It does, yeah.
But we don't always put together why. You and I have discussed sales and worked on sales. We've done it for 30 years. We've been talking about it every week for 4 years, where we talk to each other, which has gotten us better at what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We teach it. So when we get into a sales situation, we get luckier than other people because we have more practice on what to say, how to say it, how not to get ourselves in trouble, how not to screw up. So we tend to be luckier. I would say that we probably have a higher closing ratio than many people who sell who are new to sales or haven't done it before or just learning, not because we're luckier, but because we know what to say. And then sometimes that can look like luck. Wow, you get, you close 50% of your deals. Well, yeah, but I also don't get myself into the conversation with a client that's not going to value what I value.
Right.
So there's things that go on that we could consider luck if we looked at it, but even a gut feeling of it, and they talk about investors in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get a gut feeling from all the things they've studied, and they can look at something and pick it, even though they haven't done all of the 100% due diligence I might have to do.
Well, and there's nothing that's really guaranteed. You hope that you have the chance of it going in your favor as you go through the process. And that sometimes can be perceived as luck, is that, you go through the process, you're very familiar with it, you're prepared, you're not getting emotionally involved, you're not starting to lose your confidence, you're not starting to surrender your momentum to another person's momentum, which can happen in a sales
Right.
conversation. Is sometimes the salespeople relax and the prospects end up taking over the conversation. And boy, if you're a salesperson, the prospect's leading the conversation, where are you going? You have no idea where you're going in that
Well, and
case.
think about how many times outside influences damage or help a sale. So
Yeah.
think about investing. 5 years ago, you invested in the winner, which was GoToMeeting.
Oh, yeah.
GoToMeeting was the big app.
Right.
Everybody had to, it was $100 a month to GoToMeeting, and then COVID hit, and Zoom came out at $100 a year,
Right. Yeah.
or for free if you're only a couple of you on the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, it really took over,
Yeah. Really did.
right? And so if you invested in Zoom, did you get lucky, or did you
Well,
see the
well,
future, or did you,
right.
right?
Right. That's
So
a very good
so
example.
so what, that outside forces came in COVID. How many
Yeah.
businesses did that destroy, and how many businesses did that help? And
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't have foreseen it. We sure as heck didn't foresee it. And
So true.
so you're in the right place at the right time. We call that luck.
Yeah. Yeah. The chapter kind of closes out with success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. Failure can be a lousy teacher because it seduces smart people into thinking their decisions were terrible when sometimes they just reflect the unforgiving reality of risk. And I can see both sides of that having an influence in every decision that a person makes. Is it going to be successful or failure? And how much is luck and risk going to have to do with
That's
it?
right. And from a sales standpoint, if you're only getting in a few deals,
Mm,
then you're going to have to be a lot luckier. If you
well,
get yourself involved in 10 good conversations a week, you're going to have more good opportunities. And then when luck bites negatively and doesn't give you what you want, you still got other deals. And that's the challenge with a lousy sales funnel
hmm
full of junk that you think you got something going on, and it's all dead. And you're fooling your mind to thinking I have activity, and you don't.
Yeah, it's clogged up with unqualified leads.
That's right.
So the next chapter, chapter 3, is titled Never Enough. And this chapter devolves into the historical perspective on money and investing and drawing lessons from past events and trends, which illustrates how studying financial history can provide valuable insight into market behavior and human psychology, informing more prudent financial decisions. So that was the AI description
I think
of
that's too
this.
long.
It is a, I
I
asked
think
for
it's
five
easy. I think
sentences.
it's easier to say that some people don't know when to stop.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what they do is risky behavior because they don't have enough. But
Mm-hmm.
what is enough?
Well, and this chapter opens up with Bernie Madoff and how he was really quite successful, honest, doing honest investing, but got greedy and started this Ponzi scheme. And it's amazing how you are never enough when it comes to success. You always want to get more. And this chapter has 4 points to it. And one of the points is the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving.
Mhm.
And modern capitalism is a pro at two things: generating wealth and generating envy. Happiness is said to be just the results minus the expectations. And I thought that this was an interesting description of dealing with a moving target and a goalpost changing, and how people that end up getting into a certain group of people at a higher standard than what they were a year before, and then they want to get higher and they want to get higher and they want to get moving up
Yep.
and not really enjoying the people that they're around at the time. How much
Well,
is too much?
yeah, the goal for status, the goal for the fear of losing everything
Mm-hmm.
causes this. I mean, we talked in the first couple chapters about children of the depression,
Mm-hmm.
who then saw everything get lost, and so they want more so that they don't lose it. But then their very desire for more, in Bernie Madoff's case, causes him
Yeah.
to lose it.
Right. Right.
So we fight against ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Seems like every time I move, I just sometimes wish that I had a house fire a day before I got the moving truck out there, because it would be a fresh
Especially when
start.
you're moving all those books behind you.
Exactly. That takes up half the
I
truck.
know that's books, and I have an old record album still. I have probably
Okay.
200 record albums that maybe more that I have to move, and they sit down in my basement now doing nothing but
I'm sure they're
crazy,
going to come back.
crazy. Yeah, well, they have come back, but I like them too much. I never listen to them, but I won't sell them, so
Right.
I'm stuck in that. But I think it's really interesting how we perceive other people's success too. Now, you and I are both Christians,
Mm-hmm.
so there's some pressure within the people we know. Don't be too showy, don't show too much, don't.
Right.
And I remember this, we bought a fairly nice house down in the southern metro, and we had some friends who lived in a very nice house, but when our house became bigger than theirs, ours was too big.
Oh my.
Their house was fine, but our house was too big because it was now bigger than theirs.
Mm.
And I find that that happens a lot, talking about another type of pressure, that somebody becomes jealous of our success instead of being happy about success.
Mm-hmm.
So that never enough thing can come in to
Yeah.
that as well.
And that gets into, the next point of these 4 points within this chapter 3 is social comparison is the problem here. The author talks about an example of a baseball player that makes $500,000 a year, and then another player that makes $430 million a year, and how
No,
these
no, he makes 430 million in a like an 8-year contract.
in, oh, 12 years. Okay, I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
12 years.
yeah. So he's
So
making 35 million a year or something like that. That's
that's how
still
in
a
touch
lot.
I am with
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I know they all make a
Well,
lot of money.
and you see this in sports contracts
Yeah,
because I want my contract to be the richest one,
right. Yeah,
right? And so I'm not satisfied unless you pay me more, and I won't play for you unless you pay. Well, it's $60 million a year, I think, for Hodani,
wow. Oh yeah,
for the Dodgers paying him. It's just crazy. This is a game. We got
yeah,
people
yeah.
making
It
sixty
is.
million dollars a year. It's just wacko.
Wow. The next point they make is enough is not too little. Enough is realizing that the opposite, an insatiable appetite for more, will push you to the point of regret. And sometimes I feel like this being self-employed, and I look at all of the opportunities that I'm getting in the marketplace and how I want to take every single proposal that gets accepted, and I end up just draining myself of energy and enthusiasm, and I start to dislike, sales training because it's so exhausting. And you really have to maintain that work-life balance about how much is enough.
Yep.
And how can you be content and manage that lifestyle with a certain amount of pressure and to seek joy every day?
We're going to talk about that, Scott, when we talk about the entrepreneurial salesperson, because part of being an entrepreneur is always being afraid that there's not another deal in the future.
Yeah,
And so you
yeah,
take everything now, even though you overwhelm yourself, because you never know when the next meal is going to come. You don't have
exactly.
that base pay that's going to keep things going. So,
Exactly, exactly. Unfortunately, my body has started to collect a lot of different food that it doesn't know where its next meal is going to be. But that's
yeah,
something.
well, we could live off of our own body weight for a while. So,
And the last of chapter 3 is there are many things never worth risking, no matter the potential gain. And I really like this point. It says, don't get too attached to anything, your reputation, your accomplishments, anything that you think about now, and what does not matter and what does matter. Um, you know, things can be unjustly destroyed by my reputation, and that's only troubling if I'm attached to my reputation. So if your reputation, you have to remember your reputation is invaluable. Freedom is and independence is invaluable. Friends and family are invaluable. Being loved by those who you want to love is invaluable, and happiness is invaluable. So what things are you really risking when it comes to getting more?
yeah.
And is that more really going to be able to support the priorities in your life, or is it going to distract the priorities in your life? I hear about people that are working and they start to make a lot of money and they start to become leaders. And what comes out of them is a side of greed, and or they want to be a sort of a dictator type of leader
Mm-hmm.
because they've got that power.
Well, because
And
I'm smarter than you. And that's, it made me think of the book Mindset.
Yeah.
And the Enron controversy of wanting to be the smartest person in the room all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a form of greed too, that I have to be smarter than everybody else. I have to be better. I have to be right all the time. All those things are challenges that are good in small measures, but taken
Yeah.
to the extreme. And that's what we have when we talk about reputation. Everything taken to the extreme becomes evil.
Right.
So you
Definitely.
just
Anything.
have to always moderate your behavior and self-moderate what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Moderation. Everything in moderation.
Yeah,
No book
good.
club next week. We're going to have a guest, so
We're
we'll
going to
talk
have a
about that a
guest.
little bit later. But
Yeah, good. So our main topic today is the entrepreneurial salesperson. And as I mentioned in the intro, I was listening to a experienced salesperson speak, and very, very convincing when he said that his mindset was to see his territory as his own business and run it as if he owned it. So I
mm,
started to think about what this would really take to develop that mindset, what that would mean, and is it valuable as a way to present yourself to your customers and prospects. So let's first talk about some of the definitions of an entrepreneur and what that would mean for a salesperson. First of all, it means ownership, right? Scott and I have owned
hmm
our own businesses for 30 years. You see your territory, your vertical, your accounts, however that's broken up, as your tables that you're waiting on, as Scott said,
hmm
those are all an asset that needs to be maximized, and you're the only one that can do it. So, Scott, is that a good way to think about your territory?
I think it is. I think that you have to be able to have a territory and an area that you claim as yours. And when you have ownership, you have accountability. And the accountability is to yourself and the customers and the market that you serve. And all of that determines your reputation.
Yeah, I think you're limited often by that territory. As a
Mm,
matter of fact, I think the territory limited can be helpful for salespeople because the good news is the entire world is my territory. The bad news is the entire world is my territory.
right.
It's too big of a bite to take out. So when I focus myself down, and I've always focused myself in the Minneapolis St. Paul metro area, sometimes my customers have taken me beyond that,
Mm,
but I haven't felt the need to try and advertise myself nationwide or worldwide. And that's because it's a big enough bite. You and I talked once when we were talking about being competitive with each other, and you said, Bill, there's more than enough business in the Twin Cities for us.
oh, definitely.
And I think that's really true. So knowing what you own, limiting yourself, and really focusing in on that territory can be very helpful. And the mindset that says, this is all I have, I better take good care of this,
hmm
can be a helpful mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. The second idea is that you need to be strategic. And so you're limited by your territory, but you're also limited by time. And so what are the most likely buyers, and how can I spend time with them? And I don't think enough salespeople do this, but I do think entrepreneurs do this. I don't have time to waste on unqualified buyers. And so I do spend my time trying to understand who my best customer is, who my most likely customer is, and then spend time with them and in locations where they are. And if I'm not strategic, I'm going to waste my time. And that's really very valuable to me as an entrepreneur, is my time.
Mm-hmm. And being strategic, you have a higher success rate because you've got wins with perfect fits versus failures and rejections from people who are misfits.
Right.
And so often salespeople just chase the wrong lead.
Well, they chase the leads that come in,
Right.
good or bad, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not, answering the phone is not strategic. Answering the phone is a chance that I'm going to get somebody good or I'm going to get somebody bad. And most salespeople don't want to do the work to qualify these people and move them on to somebody else or move them on to another company. Heck, we advise our clients all the time: take your bottom 5 customers and give them to your competition.
Right. Yeah.
That let them have the headache of those people. But if you're not thinking strategically, you're not going to be talking, as you said, to the right person or the most likely buyer.
hmm
The next one is I need to sell or fail. And this is something that any entrepreneur has felt. There's no safety net. There's no base pay. If you don't make the sale, you could lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've certainly been in the point where I've used my savings up. I borrowed from my parents. I've gotten to that point a couple of times in my business. Now, desperation can be good because it caused
Mm-hmm.
me to work harder, but it can be bad. Like in the case of, now that wasn't desperation in the cases that you talked about in the book,
Mm.
but my desire for more caused me to use unethical means. So don't use desperation as a way to become unethical. In any case, I'll tell you what, when you're, when you don't have enough money for food, or you're not going to be able to pay for your house payment, you get motivated.
Right, exactly. Hopefully you get motivated, not depressed, because there's a balance there too.
Well, if you get depressed, you're in the wrong business being an entrepreneur, because you
Yeah,
got to get things going. So
yeah, exactly.
it's sell or fail, and uh, I think that can get you focused. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, so true.
All right, number 4, balance priorities, and this is where I think things start to go south on this analogy. An entrepreneur is the marketing department. They're the finance, delivery, customer service. Uh, Entrepreneurs wear all the hats, and all these things fall under their purview. And then they must also find the time to sell. And where are they going to get the time?
Right, right. Yeah, it's really looking at the priorities of your life and your lifestyle. I vow when summertime comes around, I'm not working on the weekends. But
Right.
I have some very loose boundaries sometimes when it comes to working. I enjoy what I do, and I will spend, 6 hours on a Saturday getting caught up on stuff that in preparation for the next week too. And I enjoy doing that.
And one of the big disadvantages of having your office in your home, they found this during COVID,
Yeah.
that people would work all kinds of hours because the office was right there and they could turn on their computer, and that physical boundary between home and work was separated. And I know my wife gets mad at me. So you're not going in your office again tonight.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
well, this is where the stuff I have to do is. Even the home stuff I have to do is here. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so the priorities can get out of whack, but I don't think salespeople have to do all those things. They have all that support, which is good.
Hmm.
All right,
Yeah.
number 5, you get high profit. So great risk equals great reward, and ownership means you get to keep everything. You're not splitting it with the company. You're not have service people. You're not just getting 5% of the sale. You're getting 50% of the sale. You're getting the entire bundle yourself. And so that profitability, that extra money, that should reward your efforts, which doesn't always translate into being a salesperson. So you can think about ownership, have that feeling, but you're not really getting the profits of having that ownership because you have all that other support. So those are the reasons I went into business for myself: the high
Mm.
profit, the not having somebody push me around. I remember the company I was working for at the time. They were, you can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And I finally said, listen, I'm gonna go out on my own because I can do some of these things.
Right, right.
We did sales training, but we didn't do any consulting. We didn't.
Mm.
And you and I have found that, to do a sales strategy before we go in and do a sales training is
Right.
invaluable. And
Exactly.
most of the problems with companies, half of them are in their strategy.
Hmm.
So those are the reasons I went into business for myself. How about you, Scott? Anything else you want to
I
add?
my first sales job was selling real estate, and I saw an ad in the paper, and it said, make as much money as you think you're worth. And off I went out and got my real estate license, and I went into the brokerage firm, and I was at my cube, and I was ready. I had my MLS books, my lockbox, my HP 12C. I was ready. Didn't make any calls, didn't go out and talk to anybody,
You're
and
waiting for him to call you.
and it's like,
Don't
okay,
these
Scott,
people know that I'm
go out and do
available?
something, get out of here.
Right.
So that was mine. And I unfortunately I had to file bankruptcy earlier in my life
Mm.
because I just did not do the effort. Now, do you ever think I ever slowed down after that? Oh no. That was a lesson. We knew where the bottom was and we bounced off of it.
Right. Right.
And we changed our behavior from that point forward.
Yeah, and that bankruptcy takes a long time to recover from.
It does
So
10 years.
it's a reminder that you didn't do the work that you needed to do. So can a salesperson be helped by thinking of his or her territory or accounts as a business owner? I think
Absolutely.
they can, but I don't think the analogy holds up. And so here's what I think the benefits are. You can get more focused because you feel the weight of ownership. that responsibility can get you more focused. If you're 100% commission, you know what you're going to get paid for this success or failure. So that's important. And then you take a higher level of responsibility for everything that happens in your territory. So you're more focused on how customer service is helping and what delivery is doing, because you even though you don't deliver, perhaps you feel the weight and importance of the delivery system. So all those things can be benefits to make you higher. But the more I thought about, the less valid I thought it was. And here's the reasons I don't think it's valid. So I'm interested in your thoughts on these, Scott. You're not the owner, and you don't own it, and someone above you can take it away from you at any time. You can have low sales, you can get replaced, you can have great sales, and they might ask you to shrink your territory or reassign you. You know, we've seen that. Oh man, you're making more than the owner, so we're going to cut your territory in half.
Right.
You really don't have control. You really don't have ownership, and you can put your heart and soul into something, and then somebody up above you can take it away. Second point that where the analogy breaks down is commission limits. Now, I've worked for many organizations that get scared if a salesperson's making too much income, and I've watched CFOs try to limit this. I had a situation where I asked the CFO, okay, let's do a rate chart here. What's the number? He said 2%. I did a rate chart on 2%, and it showed that if they sold one of these big multi-million-dollar deals, they were going to make a lot of money. He said, we can't do that. I said, my God, that's what you said the number was. Reward the people. Well, they don't really deserve it because that was just, they didn't do the sale. So you got all this, all this jealousy and stuff going on up above where commission limits come in. Have you ever experienced that?
I have. And unfortunately, the sales drift off just like the commissions stop. And
that's right.
Directly connected.
Well, and I'll tell you, you're going to lose your best salespeople, not your worst.
You will. Yep, absolutely.
And that's because you have number 3, and that's base pay. Almost every salesperson I know has some kind of a base pay, $30,000, $40,000 a year. And some of them allow that safety net to be a challenge net. They get demotivated because they have money coming in. There's not the challenge of, I'm not going to be able to pay for my house this month. And so everything's taken care of. I've seen base pays of $70,000 and $80,000 for sales.
Over 100. I've seen them over 100.
Yeah. It's like, what's your motivation to get to work? So the base pay can be, we don't have that. I'll tell you, an entrepreneur does not have a base pay. My base pay is, like negative $3,000 a month. That's the nut, right? So,
right.
All right, company support. Entrepreneurs wear all the hats. You don't wear all the hats as a salesperson. You have a sales team, you have leadership, you have marketing, you have computer systems, you have delivery teams, you have customer service. There's tons of support that an entrepreneur doesn't have. And I'll tell you, salespeople, you are fortunate to have all those people supporting you. And many salespeople don't take advantage of the support team.
True. Very true.
Finally, you have a sales manager and senior leadership. Now, this can be good or bad. Do they teach? Do they support? Do they help you? Or do they cause you more trouble? And that's often why salespeople leave, because sales manager or the leadership does something wrong. You could be doing everything right, and then senior leadership in marketing hires Dylan Mulvaney, like Bud Light, and all of a sudden you have a 50% drop in your territory, and they're going to still blame you.
Right.
Yep. They're still going to say, you got a 50% drop in your territory. It's like, well, you did this dumb thing that made everybody mad at us.
Exactly.
Well, what am I supposed to do? Well, you better get out there and sell. So anyway, any final thoughts from you?
No, that's a very good list of what happens when you're an entrepreneur and what happens if you don't. And it's very relevant to a lot of options that people have in today's marketplace. They really do.
I don't think you need to have the entrepreneurial mindset to say, this is my territory. This is what I have. I'm responsible for it, and I'm going to make the most of it. And I think that's really what we're trying to say here. You're lucky you don't have to be the marketing arm and the sales arm and the delivery arm of everything, because it takes all your time. Focus on selling, do a great job, use the people to support you so you can spend more time out there having conversations with your customer.
Right. Well said. Great topic, Bill. And I've got a quote, a golden nugget that's
All
very
right.
relevant to that. And that is the difference between great people and everyone else is that great people create their lives actively, while everyone else is created by their lives passively, waiting to see where life takes them next. The difference between the two is living fully and just existing, by Michael Gerber, the author of The E-Myth. And I think some of our listeners have read that book.
Sure. Or as they said, seize the day.
Yes,
Seize the
exactly.
day. Don't get distracted. Don't get yourself mind wandering. Get focused on what you enjoy doing about sales and do a ton of it.
And you talked earlier about, having a faith-filled life. And that quote, I struggle with that quote because I believe God puts me exactly where he wants me to be at the time. And he puts me around people that I need to be around at the time. And he puts me around people that need me there at the time. And sometimes there are some things that I just cannot prepare for.
Right.
And you just have to go with it and you have to believe in it. And you just have to be very open-minded to ask yourself, dear Lord, what am I to learn from this? And amazing the answer that you'll find when you ask that question.
But I think I like the saying, God can't steer a parked car.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
so if you're not moving, if you're not trying, if you're not out in the if you don't decide to go out into the community, you can't run into the people that you're supposed to run into. If you don't choose that opportunity to enact yourself, to start movement, you can't have good things happen. As you found out in real estate sales, sitting in your office waiting for the phone to ring
Right.
just wasn't going to happen.
Not going to cut it.
Not going to happen. There's no customers in the office. They're all out in
Right.
their own homes. So,
Right.
all right, let's wrap it up here with our contact information. Go to winningatselling.com, our show page there. This is show 605.
Next week, No Book Club. We're going to be having a guest, Seth Johnson. He's going to be selling in sync, how sales and marketing can unite to generate more leads and close more deals. So we're really looking forward to that conversation. I really want to encourage and suggest and would be grateful if you subscribe and share this podcast with your colleagues and on social media.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.